Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming out to tonight's council workshop. Let the record show that Councilmember Board and Councilmember Alvarez is at the NTC with the chamber, and also Councilwoman Gonzalez is en route. Madam Secretary, presentations.
PR 24009, presentation regarding Stone Tree Golf Course.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Mr. Cagle.
Yes, ma'am, Mayor and Council, we have Jeff Thomason here with Troon Golf to give us an update on the golf course and give you a chance to ask any questions that you would like at the end. Jeff?
Thank you, Mr. Cagle, and sir, welcome.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, staff, and residents. Thank you for allowing us the opportunity to be with you this evening and provide an update on the operation at Stone Tree Golf Club. My name is Jeff Thomason, Vice President of Operations with Troon and Indigo Sports. With me this evening, I would like to introduce Chris Osborne, our General Manager at Stone Tree, as well as Dell Huff, our Golf Course Superintendent. Thank you.
Welcome.
What we plan to share today is an overview of the financial performance of the golf course, as well as an overview of the 2024 business plan, with an emphasis on the sales and marketing efforts. Furthermore, we would like to begin the conversation surrounding the city's desire to undertake a master facility plan that will take Stone Tree Golf Club into the next 50 years. As an organization, we endeavor to collaborate on every element of our partnership with the City of Killeen. This includes a keen focus on regular communication between our respective teams across all disciplines. Regular and frequent meetings focus on operations, finance, as well as agronomy and grounds. Additionally, we work closely with the city on sales and marketing efforts and recreational programming. Clearly, we are having a successful run at Stone Tree Golf Club over the last 4 years. The collaboration I mentioned earlier is a big part of the reason the golf course has seen such positive results since our partnership began. The result of this is a bottom line improvement of approximately $408,000 in net income in fewer than 5 years. For the current operating year, we are already seeing a very positive trend in revenues and performance. With the improvements planned for 2024 into 2025, all key indicators point towards continued positive growth at Stone Tree. Now to speak briefly about our annual business plan. Just for note, this is a 30,000-foot view of the overall business plan, highlighting key elements of said plan. The entire plan will be included in your packet from tonight, and I'm more than happy to discuss more detailed elements of the plan if you reach out to myself or Chris Osborne anytime this evening or in the future. At Stone Tree, we have a fantastic facility in a very favorable location. We have the bandwidth to improve our facilities through careful, deliberate planning that will allow for the creation of new and diverse programs. We feel strongly that Stone Tree is one of the best public golf courses in the area with amenities to match. We have a well-put-together practice facility and a clubhouse that offers a myriad of revenue-producing opportunities. Conversely, the lack of a large, contiguous, all-weather event space currently prevents us from attracting large weddings, large corporate outings, and the like. Furthermore, the aging infrastructure creates its own particular set of challenges related to the irrigation system and cart paths, as well as needed upgrades to the clubhouse and the golf course maintenance facility. Our opportunities at Stone Tree revolve around golf and non-golf events alike and junior program creation. Our marketing efforts, especially those centered around social media and database management, are key to attracting and retaining new customers. Threats to our long-term viability are the increasing cost of water, spiraling wages, and operating costs. Additionally, we must be ever mindful of what our competitors are doing to improve their respective facilities. As someone who has served the Central Texas golf community since 1988, I for one know the power of community. At Stone Tree Golf Club, we are committed to being a partner with all of our area's stakeholders, working closely with our schools, civic organizations, and the local business community. We aspire to elevate the quality of life for everyone we come in contact with. By creating new and exciting programs for each element of our customer base, we are endearing ourselves to the consumer and staying top of mind when they are choosing where to spend their entertainment dollars. Programming events for golf and non-golf activities is paramount to our mission at Stone Tree. We are, in fact, in the entertainment business, and we are constantly developing new ways to grow traffic and to welcome new guests. Furthermore, we are committed to reestablishing programs that are focused on youth and junior golfers. Programs such as the First Tee of Killeen, the Killeen Junior Golf Association, and summer youth programs such as the Boys and Girls Club come to mind. Adult instruction and veteran outreach programs such as PGA Hope are also critical to our business. We are extremely aware of how our customers share their experience on social media. We strive to ensure that all guests are finding value in their experience, so we use a host of tools to measure guest satisfaction. In 2024, we are poised to complete the refurbishment of all 17 sand bunkers on the golf course and beginning the process of repairing all the water feature retaining walls throughout the facility. Additionally, we have undertaken clubhouse ground improvements and extensive turf improvement practices throughout the golf course. Additionally, we recently upgraded our turf maintenance equipment fleet. So let's speak briefly about the facility master plan, and as we start this conversation, this is a good starting point. As you can see from the bullet points on this slide, the golf course is now over 50 years old. The need to address aging infrastructure such as cart paths, irrigation, and the golf course maintenance facility that I mentioned earlier needs to be brought into sharper focus. The cost of these items have skyrocketed over the last 5 years, as we all know. This is forcing facilities across the country to pay much closer attention to how they invest often limited resources into their facilities. An unfocused capital improvement plan can cause a facility to go down rabbit hole after rabbit hole to address various needs a facility might have. Given those facts, it is important as ever to have a well-thought-out, long-term plan for improvement that have a direct impact on the facility's long-term viability and sustainability. Earlier in the month of March, I had the opportunity to give a tour of the Stone Tree Golf Club and the campus to members of the council and city staff. We reviewed the overall facilities and had meaningful discussions on what could be possible. To begin the discussion regarding a comprehensive plan to address the future of Stone Tree Golf Club, we discussed what that process might look like. The elements to consider are numerous for this type of plan. Do we develop a comprehensive master plan to include the overall campus? How do we incorporate the newly gifted property adjacent to the driving range into the overall facility plan? Is there an opportunity to perform clubhouse renovations to include an all-weather enclosed pavilion? Is there an opportunity to relocate the Turf Care Center and repurpose that land parcel it currently resides on? Once the decision to move forward with the development of the master plan is made, a phased approach will be necessary based on priorities established by the council, city staff, and key stakeholders. If the city enlists the services of architects and land planners, we will engage them on this project. Otherwise, at the city's direction, Indigo Golf Partners will work with its current vendors to source those qualified vendors and participate with the city in creating the necessary agreements to engage those providers. The cost to complete an overall master plan will vary based on the following factors: the scope of work, the development of the critical path, the creation of project cost and architectural plans, travel, etc. For those services, costs could range from $25,000 to $85,000, depending on the factors mentioned above. Please understand that there are more questions than answers at this point, as the conversations are just beginning. True cost will come into sharper focus as we move the process forward. To begin to understand what is possible, key points need to be addressed. A key stakeholder group will need to be established with a clearly defined set of project goals and a calendar of agreed upon milestones will need to be developed, and the city will need to determine how to best gather community feedback. Sorry. In closing, I leave you with this. What is the overarching goal of what we are wanting to accomplish with the pursuit and creation of a facility master plan? We do look forward to helping you answer this question. We are eager to be a participant in this endeavor, and we look forward to what the future may hold at Stone Tree Golf Club. Thank you all for your time and attention.
Thank you very much, sir. Are there any questions from council? Councilmember Adams.
I know in 2022, when I first got on council, that we had approved a fee increase. Does that explain the increase in income, or what were the other things that led to the increase?
Partly, but really coming out of COVID and being allowed to have large group gatherings again, for, all of 20, and really a large chunk of 21 into early 22. We weren't allowed to have large gatherings, but more importantly, most companies didn't. They weren't doing anything, just out of respect for the pandemic we've been through. But subsequent to 2022, it started to ease, and we're getting back into more of a normal routine. But yeah, certainly the increases were a contributor. But the reality is golf has just boomed since 2020, because in 2020, golf was one of the few activities that people were allowed to do. Just didn't involve social distancing. So it's been a boom for the golf industry.
Okay, and then since the increase in the fees and some of the other things that you've done, what, if any, negative feedback have you gotten? I saw the kudos, but...
No more than the typical pushback. Anytime the consumer is so accustomed now to increases in price and the cost of everything. The prices that we've put forth and the increases we made are small in comparison to what some other
Okay. And then
consumer expenses are seeing.
And my
today.
last question is, have you spoken, because I know we have a Parks Master Plan, and the golf course is a park and it's not a park, depending on how you look at it. Have you spoken with our recreation folks about?
Yes, sir, we have, and that was kind of the impetus behind this presentation. Part of the presentation tonight about the master plan is when we met with staff and council members there, a month ago, I guess, about. That was the whole idea, is just to kind of seeing where the golf course would fit into the master plan and what's possible.
Okay, thanks.
So, yes, sir, you're welcome.
There you go. Thank you, Mayor. And first off, I just want to say thank you. I think that you guys, so far, one of the best things the city has done was outsource the golf course. I remember I've been on the council going on 12 years, and we were losing close to $400,000 a year. And looking at the numbers, starting in 2022, I guess, we start to see some positive, instead of going in the red, we're in the black.
Yes, sir.
And hopefully that will continue. I'm sure it will. And the other part of that too is not just that we're making revenue. As I talk to the people that use the golf course, they offer a lot of compliments too. So you guys are doing a better job than we as a city can do. So I compliment you for doing that, because you guys really know what you're doing. And so that's good. But my question goes back to that last question that you put on the slide, which is, let me go back to it. There, you put that last question there. And then what is the overall reaching goal of what we're trying to accomplish? Is that a question that you're looking for feedback from the community, from the golfers, from the council, or is that something that you guys are just, I know that's a starting point, but you put that question out there, and I know that a lot goes with that question, but what kind of feedback are you looking from who, basically?
Well, I think everybody you mentioned is part of that group. I think it's truly a collaboration for everybody in the city, because being part of the park system, our job is to provide an element of quality of life for the citizens, and we want, as your asset manager, which is what we are at the golf course, we want to be able to participate in a process that is well thought out, that's agreed upon by the vast majority of those involved, and makes good, I'll say business sense, but because that's important, obviously, in the vein of recreation. But as I mentioned, I mean, the projects that we're doing and have done over certainly in the last 48 months, the cost of everything has just skyrocketed. And what we're finding is, as we're developing these, and I'll call it a master plan, but really a focused approach to how we spend our dollars in a capital manner, that if you don't have a well-thought-out plan, you can get upside down on cost so quickly. I'll give you an example. I have a clubhouse in Dallas that I'm just starting the process of renovating. We contracted with an architect to come into a master plan. We knew that cost, but we were thinking the overall project, kind of based on some figures we had in hand from 6 years ago, of about $5 million. When we finished the project and stood everything up, it was north of $11 million. So the whole point of doing a plan like this is to prepare everybody and garner agreement, but more importantly, come up with a plan that makes total sense and will take us into the next 3 decades.
Well, and because you said that, that's the reason, why I kind of asked that, because, if you ask your citizens, they're going to say one thing. If you ask golfers, they're going to say another thing. If you ask council, we might say another thing. We have 3 different, or even more, understandings of what a golf course does to a community. If I'm a citizen and I don't play golf, $11 million, I'd rather put that in a park. As he said, we got a park master plan. Golf has nothing to do with it. So, I mean, that's why I think that that's an important question in figuring out who are the people that we're going to ask this to, what is it? And so I think it's going to involve a lot of education out there before we start putting this out together to the people. But I think that that can be a question that can go all kinds of different ways depending on the focus group that you're targeting. So-
Yes, sir. I think for this initial flush, and we've talked about it, key elements of every group, stakeholder group, if you will, to start the conversation. We had conversations very broadly about what's possible, and anything and everything's possible. It's what's going to elevate the experience, it's what's going to maintain the course's long-term viability and sustainability, and its ability to stand on its own and pay for itself, and not have to reach into city coffers to already limited resources to maintain an element of the city that's only used by not a super high percentage of residents, but a fairly significant number of residents. So I think just having this group and saying, okay, we had 6 or 8 or 10 people sit down and just say, with a whiteboard, and say, okay, what's possible? What are we wanting to do? And I think that's a good starting point to understand what everybody's appetite is for doing a master plan.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
There's a lot of great information shared, and I think that Councilmember Segarra asked the question I was going to ask. But I think it's also important with this plan, while you say that the costs have skyrocketed, to your point, we need to figure out other ways to generate alternative streams of income for this thing so that ultimately it can sustain. There's a lot of what we call in sales low-hanging fruit, that we're missing a lot of viable opportunities that could be that potentially for this for the golf course, whether it was the venue for weddings, as you mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
That is truly big business, and is a huge opportunity if we could get it right, where that could be just one of many streams that you yourself had identified during our tour.
Yes, ma'am.
So I do think it's important that we keep that in mind, that there are realistic, viable ways that could be started very low cost to be able to get this thing moving and off the ground for you. So again, thank you for the presentation.
Yes, ma'am.
Are there any, Councilmember Solomon?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for the presentation. I'm sorry I was not able to make it there. I was out of town during that time, but I really had made that request that we would be there because there's a lot of people that play golf, and I think that that golf course has so much potential, and to attract, I mean, it could be a kind of like a centerpiece for the city. I mean, we have the military, just like you mentioned in your presentation, in terms of competing with other golf courses. I've seen some golf course down in Temple. They have restaurants inside it. I'm asking, could we do something like that? I know we have some type of a restaurant there, but we don't have a sit down where they take your order, things like that, but we have the room, and we have the ability to make that clubhouse a really nice place.
Yes, sir.
And even outside, you mentioned about inside events, where we could take that center part of that golf course and outside. But it needs to be like we can just start where we can, and that's just fixing that golf course up to a point where it's the appearance. I've talked to Mr. Cagle about that, if we can just get a paint job on it. You know what I'm saying?
Yes,
we
sir.
can replace the tables that's out there that's sitting outside in the rain. We had an event out there, a nonprofit event out there last year, and I was kind of disappointed, to be honest with you, to bring people there and where they could not sit in nice outside chairs. They've been sitting out, look like they've been sitting out for years, rusted table. So those little things I think that we could start with, and fixing what we already have without spending a lot of money. So that's what I would like to see.
Okay.
so it can just be so presentable, because that's a nice golf course.
Yes, it is.
And we're looking forward to being out there again. So that's where I'm at. I'm pleased to see that we are making progress, and we have been. I had a chance to meet with, I believe, the manager, was it Chris?
Chris?
Yeah, and boy, I was so relieved that, hey, I could see he has vision. Y'all have vision out there that we can take the necessary steps that we need to take to make it happen and to make it presentable for our citizens, and even attract, like you mentioned. I'm glad to hear that we want to attract the youth. You know, that's so important that we can have events out there. We can have it where we've got young people playing out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Are there any more questions from council? Council, I thank you all for your input. And sir, I thank you for coming tonight to present
Yes,
to the
ma'am.
council. But I do believe when we're asking for revenue and we want upgrades and we want some changes made to our city golf course, that the residents' input is vital.
Yes, ma'am.
And the staff, I was talking to Mr. Cagle about coming up with, working with you, working with the council to come up with a way how we can get that information and then bring it before the council and then make those decisions. But their input is vital, whether you play golf or not. But if you're asking for an increase from the residents, period, I don't know which way we could go with it, predicated on the council. Their input is needed. But other than that, sir, once again, thank you and continue to keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
welcome.
council, staff.
Citizen comments, residents, individuals that will be speaking, citizens, you have 4 minutes to speak. Council, you have 1 minute to respond, input, or to ask a question to staff. With that being said, we will start with C.J. Nickens. Good evening, sir. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, Madam Mayor, City Council, staff, and citizens. I'm C.J. Nickens, President of the Killeen Downtown Merchants Association, and I'm here today to speak on the matters of vape shops in the downtown area. It's been repeatedly proven that these kinds of businesses attract behavior unbecoming of downtown that we aspire to build. Loitering, soliciting, littering, and illicit trafficking are just a few offenses that could be easily observed without any in-depth investigation. I spoke with Tyrone Murphy of Blades Barbershop downtown on 10th Street, and I listened to his frustrations as he operates a business next to a vape shop. His property has been damaged, human waste left alongside the front and side of his business, and lastly, his brother was caught in a crossfire, resulting in 2 bullet wounds. Lack of oversight by the business owners and reluctancy of staff to enforce signage fosters an environment for potential criminal behavior. The cost of doing business downtown should not come at the expense of other fellow business owners. There are already several vape shops in the area, and downtown doesn't need more of the same. Changing zoning requirements for vape shops and limiting them to downtown does not address the real concern of illegal activities that they may be directly involved in, or the ones they may turn a blind eye to. I ask the City of Killeen to revisit the measures for mitigating the risk of vape shops and not to make downtown Killeen the only place these businesses can open shop. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service.
Appreciate it, ma'am.
Are there any questions? Thank you, sir. Cameron Cochran. Good evening. You have 4 minutes.
I also want to talk about the vape shops. Let's look at the history of the vape shops in the discussion. The city council member Ricos Adams back in November brought up the proliferation and unregulation operation of vape shops. Then back in January, another discussion, DS 24005 discussed ordinance of vape shops. In this handout back in January, it said there were only 5 vape shops that were concerned. Well, it seems today, we're looking at today's agenda item, PH 2410, now there's 11 vape shops. The city, I guess, is reaching out to grasp more and more of these vape shops and regulate them. One key thing when you see the presentation later today, you should note that the disapproval was given for this ordinance by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Yes, the city's own Planning and Zoning Commission disapproved this proposal. But yet, once again, I guarantee the city council is going to override that. Now let's look at the 11 small businesses that are trying to operate. Somehow the staff who created this review and included 11 businesses forgot to look at the regulation and how it applies to Circle K next to Ellison High School, 7-Eleven next to Shoemaker, Cefco next to Killeen High School, the H-E-B grocery store, the Walmart stores, and many other major, larger businesses that also sell vape products. Guess they just want to pick on the small businesses and not the big guys. Now let's look at the enforcement. Well, it's a Class C misdemeanor if they're caught. There's lots of signs that say you have to be 21 to enter. Who regulates this? The U.S. Department of Health regulates this. Health and Human Services, the comptroller, other law enforcement agencies, not the city of Killeen. If you look at the Texas Health and Safety Code, section 1.161.89B, the political subdivision for the city of Killeen may not adopt or enforce an ordinance or requirement relating to the lawful age of selling, distributing, the use of cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or tobacco products. Let's see, I just want to remind the city of Killeen to stop putting roadblocks in front of small businesses. I know they're going to override, once again, the Planning and Zoning Commission's proposal to disapprove this. With 1 minute left, let's look back at the Stone Tree Golf Course presentation. I think last week and the week before that, Kelly Snook, who's the executive director of the Parks and Recreation Department, said that no decision would be made with the gifted land. However, in the PowerPoint presentation by the golf course, it said that within its master plan, it wants to take control of the gifted land adjoining the golf course. Says it's thankful that it's received this newly gifted land. Well, according to Kelly Snook, she's supposed to bring back a proposal. I suggested making them potted plant areas so people can grow gardening, grow flowers and things like that. But I guess the golf course is more important than growing flowers or food for the homeless. Yes, the golf course should not automatically get this land, and we should be out of the entertainment business. If the golf course is making a profit, sell it. It's tired of being a drain on our community. Let's examine who benefits from the improvements of Stone Tree. I sent an email asking who is the members that comprise the Stone Tree Golf Course. I want to know if Killeen members, residents of Nolanville, residents of Belton or Copper Cove. I received 0 answer. We're going to increase the 1-year annual membership for adults in 2025. I'd like to know, why is the money only coming from Killeen when possibly we have members who are Harker Heights, Nolanville, Belton, and other places? It also seems strange that they're always asking for Killeen to send out money like an ATM. Very strange to me. Lastly, I'd like to talk about something we keep not discussing, which is the sale of the Twice as Funny. 3 weeks ago, I asked about that, still not discussed. Also like to know when we're going to have
Sir, that is
non-agenda
not
items
on the
back to free
agenda.
speech and back to speaking here at the podium. Thank you.
Councilmember Adams.
My name is pronounced Riakos. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The other question, today's presentation, City Manager, that's about zoning cases and not business operation as stated in Health and Safety Code?
Yes, sir, all we're talking about zoning.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez.
There was a statement that was made, and I just want the record to reflect that there are beautiful community gardens all across the city of Killeen. I highly recommend that you all please look into Killeen Creators as well as other organizations that are also sponsored by Killeen ISD. There are community partnerships all across our wonderful city that are helping our homeless and people that are less fortunate and just giving people a nice meditative space to be able to do good things and grow their own food. It's happening already. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gonzalez. And also, the golf course is open to anyone, whether you live in Nolanville, Harker Heights, you can live in Austin, you can live anywhere. If you want to rent out the facility to host a golf tournament, you can host one. I mean, they're doing the best they can with the resources that they have. And I think golfing is, especially for our youth, to give them an outlet during the summertime. It's just quality of life. It's exposing our youth to something different and something new. So I can understand the concerns when it comes to always having to pay for a facility. Revenue is big, but in the same token, our city is growing, and quality of life is important, not only to people that play golf, but to everyone. So why we, the residents of the city of Killeen, cannot have a vital, striping golf course and that we can be proud of? So that's my opinion on that. Is there anyone else who would like to give a comment? All right, thank you, Council, for your comments. The next person we have is Melissa Brown. Good evening. You have 4 minutes.
Find myself agreeing with the mayor tonight that we do need quality of life as we grow. But I think if you asked almost any citizen in Killeen, they would tell you that good streets are going to bring them a higher quality of life than a renovated golf course that a lot of the residents can't afford to use at the current rates, much less the increased rates proposed for FY25. I'd also like to talk about the fact that $25,000 to $85,000 is not a small chunk of change. If we're going to make a plan, can we make an attempt to stick to it this time? I've seen so many of our plans come in and out of here that are ignored, or we're told that they're a living document regardless of how much money we've paid for them. In May of 2015, there was a $1 million infrastructure project completed at the golf course where we ran all new irrigation lines for gray water that saved the city $215 a day out of operation out there and saved 182.5 million gallons of potable water a year from coming out of Lake Belton. So why would we not try to go back to that through TCEQ, WCID number 1? When the agreement was made in 2018, it was supposed to be negotiated in that the golf course would be maintaining that, and then it slipped through the cracks somewhere, whether it was on the management part or the city's part for not encouraging it or bringing it up. Regardless, we're still paying for their entire budget. That entire M&O budget out there, per the agreement, we pay for it. They send us the budget for the year, we pay for it. And then if there is a profit at the end of the year, there's something else there. At least that was the way it was explained when the agreement was approved back in 2018. So it may have changed since then, but it wasn't changed publicly. As far as the Florence Road rezoning, I have 3 words for council to think about: safety, safety, and safety. This is a J-shaped property. A lot of the duplexes would be in the back of a J with only one ingress, that would be landlocked. There's no way to safely get a second ingress and egress through there. Fire trucks would not have sufficient room to turn around on a standard width road, and it's right alongside of a creek. I know there are other people who have more details on that are here tonight, so I'm not going to take everything that they were going to come up and say, but just know that I think that it's a very unsafe project based on what I saw at the Planning and Zoning Commission. But I would like to take a little bit of time to talk about the vape shop ordinance. This only applies to any shop that garners 80% of their annual receipts through vapes or vape-related products. The city council is now talking about putting in more stringent controls on vapes and tobacco products than they are alcohol, which only has a 300-foot buffer around school zones. Also, these are only being prohibited around public schools, so KISD would not apply to charter schools or private schools. If it's for the safety of students and youth, then why would it not apply universally? These are not the same locations that are being robbed per our crime map, if you go look it up. And students are not being sold these items at stores. So now I could say that bars and drinking establishments bring unwanted behavior. We've got 8 of them in downtown now. And I didn't see a provision in here prohibiting these from downtown. This was supposed to be specifically for around the schools. And finally, the city council is now considering punishing legal business owners or prospective owners when it comes to being legal non-conforming or not being able to open up at all, yet Prop A is being encouraged. The state has no restrictions on vape shops. They do, however, have restrictions on marijuana, and the council overlooks that, is spending almost $100,000 to defend the
Your
right
time
to
is up.
allow.
Thank you.
If I could ask the
Michael,
council if I could
Council, any
finish my
extra
sentence,
time?
please.
No. Sagara, no. No. Gonzalez, no. Solomon. Okay,
Thank you
so
for
we
all
have
being on the
4-1.
record.
Okay,
Thank you,
with that
Mr.
being
Solomon, for
said,
encouraging
Michael
free speech.
Fanino, it's your time to speak, sir. Good evening, sir. You have 4 minutes.
True to form, you folks can't take any criticism. So, with regard to vape shops, you're proposing a solution to a problem that you are all largely responsible for creating. Let's be honest, this Prop A nonsense, you're trying to keep vapes out of the hands of children. Well, what are the vapes they're going after? They're not going after nicotine, largely. Not saying it doesn't happen, right? They're enthusiastically after anything derived from cannabis because, thanks to you wise folks, there's a lot of folks in this town who think that weed is legal and anything to do with it.
Mr. Fanino, Proposition A is not on the
It's
agenda.
related.
But it's not on
It's
the
related.
agenda.
I'm not running for office, and I'm sick of this game you play
Mr.
where you can't handle it.
Mr. Fanino,
I'm making a
please.
direct comparison that you
Just
are culpably
Because
inefficient,
you
and have
yelling
no
and
idea
screaming,
what the
it
hell you're
doesn't
doing
change.
from day to
Stay
day.
focused on it.
The
Stay
focus is on
focused.
you. You can't lead. You don't
Mr.
understand the town.
Fanino, you out. Mr. Fanino, that's my last one. You're off the agenda. Stay focused on
I'm
the agenda item.
You put in
Madam Mayor,
place-
I'm calling
you
for
put
a
in
point of
place-
order. Mr. Farino, that's not.
My name is spelled and pronounced Farino, not Farino, okay?
Mr. Lopez, he may need, sir, he may need to talk to you
Mayor Pro
outside.
Tem, he has 2 minutes and 39 seconds. Let him finish. Stay on the agenda,
I
please.
am on the agenda
Mr.
because you can't see the
Fanino.
big picture, as usual. As usual, you can't see the big picture. You create the problem that you now propose to have the solution for. All right? Ask the cops. The cops will tell you, and if KISD cops are honest and forthcoming, okay, where all of this concern is, they don't want to talk about what the problem is. The kids who are bringing the vapes are largely cannabis-related. Right? Mr. Solomon, out of all of you, bears no responsibility on creating that problem. He wasn't here to vote for it. This mess that is causing us money, it's all related. The fact that you can't see it, that is just absolutely dumbfounding. The P&Z board recommends against it because there's too many intertangled and intertwining issues to all of this. You have no idea what the town is that you proclaim that you are representing and presiding over. This is all a related issue. Do I want kids having vapes? No. It is regulated by the federal and the state government. But no, you want to act like you have some sort of supreme authority and mandate, which you do not. You've already taken away First Amendment, which is going to cost you in the end. When
Mr.
it comes to,
Fanino, get on, stay on the agenda.
well, how about you get on with the program of knowing what in the hell you're doing?
Mr. Fanino,
Madam Mayor, we can do
Stay
this
on the-
contest all day long. We can do this contest all day long, and you will lose.
are you
In
finished,
the court
Mr.
of public
Fanino?
opinion? No, I still got 50 seconds.
Please stay on the agenda.
I am on the agenda. The fact that you can't comprehend what the agenda is and the larger picture, not my problem. I've offered you free civics lessons, but I'm sorry that my vocabulary outruns your understanding.
Mr. Fanino,
I'm
stay
not
on the
running for
agenda.
office. You're not going to intimidate me. I've got nothing to lose.
Mr. Fanino, get back on the agenda.
I am on the agenda. This whole thing was created by you, trying to appease whomever it is you're trying to appease, and now you're going to try to skirt past it with, I almost guarantee, I would almost bet $1, just to make it an honest bet, that you're going to try to outrun and outvote the P&Z board. You created the problem, and now you're trying to come up with a jury-rigged
Sir,
solution
your
for it.
time is up. Thank
Knock
you.
it the hell off.
Mayor Pro Tem Cobb.
On any given Tuesday, and I'm just going to simply say, I respect the ideals and the thought process of everyone when it comes to the agenda and every council member, but I wanted to go on record as a nurse of 30 years, when this came across, I wasn't for cannabis or vaping or any of those good things. The council, when we look at our facts, we look at those things that can benefit, that cannot hurt, that will not cause problems. Our character and our demeanor makes it hard for us to listen or to understand when there's so many derogatory things. I'm going to ask constituents, this city, this council, these people, everyone, when you come to the dais, we respect your opinions,
Mayor Pro
but
Tem.
please,
Your time is up.
go to hell, stupid.
You were. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Mr. Put him out. Put him out, Chief Lopez. He cannot come back in here.
No, he cannot.
Mr. Cochran, if you continue to disrupt this meeting by screaming, you will be put out. That's your first warning. Residents, Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem. Mayor Pro Tem. You were out of order.
Yes, ma'am.
And I am asking you
I
to
apologize for
please
being out of order.
leave the dais now.
He deserved it. 3 years.
Please leave the dais now. Go out there and cry. Residents, I apologize. We can disagree. We can have our different opinions, but to totally disrespect each other with the language that Mayor Pro Tem used and the language that Mr. Fernino used, it is unacceptable behavior for adults. I know people attention is high because it's election season. And if you continue, and Mr. Cochran, that's my last warning. That's the kind of behavior from adults you're going to see. That's unacceptable. This is a place of order. This is where we come here to do business of the city. And to yell, scream, and throw tantrums and behave in this manner, it is so unacceptable. It's childish. So I apologize on behalf of this council for the behavior you had to see tonight, because it didn't have to be this way. So Councilwoman Gonzalez.
Thank you. So I'm not going to belabor the point. I did just want to tap into that same sentiment regarding civil discourse and how important it is that we have a conversation. I just wanted everyone to know that, when citizens bring something to the table, this issue, especially regarding the vaping, it was brought forward by a concerned citizen to a council member who then brought it forward to us for discussion. That's how it's supposed to work. Now, whether it's right or wrong, that's what we're here to discuss, right? No decision has been made, but that's the purpose of our civil discourse, to decide, does it make sense to enact this change or not? That's how this process works. So the unfounded attacks is just completely unwarranted. This was brought forth by another council member at the request of a citizen, and we are honoring that request by having a discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, council. We're going to take a 5-minute break. We have 4 council members. As I stated earlier, I asked Mayor Pro Tem to leave the dais because her behavior was inappropriate as a leader. Mr. Fornino was put outside for disrupting the meeting because he did not have the floor yelling from the background as I was trying to conduct our meeting. Mayor Pro Tem do have the right to respond. After talking to legal and Mr. Cagle, she has 1 minute. I don't have to agree with what she says, but she has, according to our agenda, 1 minute to speak. Regardless of what she say, she still has 1 minute to speak. With that being said, Mr. Leo Gukaisen, Mayor Pro Tem.
Good evening again. My apologies to the city, to our mayor, and to this council. I was wrong, and I was unprofessional. And I do take that hit, but I'll protect this city, this council, this mayor, any day of the week. I see the hard work. I see what they stand for. I see what we walk in. We are honorable. We work hard. For 3 years, I've taken a beat down, pictures of my home, harassment, all kinds of things. You just would not believe it. And I've sat here quietly, and I said nothing. I do apologize on behalf of Nina M. Cobb, your pro tem. Apology is due, and it is given. I will do my best to conduct myself thereon without using a defamatory word. But I tell you what, I'll fight a bear over this city.
Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just on the point of the ordinance and the comment about it, the purpose of it had nothing to do with Prop A. It was because of, as Ms. Councilmember Gonzalez stated, some residents had an issue with the location of other vape shops. And as I explained to the business owner, the concern about shutting down vape shops, we're staying within the law, and the only way we can do that, and I want to say this now, and so it's not belabored in the presentation, that to shut down a vape shop means we buy it. And I don't see us going in that direction. And lastly, this council did not approve Prop A, the citizens did. Thank you.
Thank you. And also, I just want to talk that our city budget, the golf course budget is their budget, it's not the city budget. Quality of life is important, regardless of, I may like golf, some may like bowling, some may like softball, football, tag, football. It is, each individual, each resident have their own preference on what they like for quality of life. As far as the vape shop, everyone should know this, and I don't know why people come to the dais and just throw stuff in the atmosphere, because it's not true. I want to say it again, because someone says something. I don't care how much statistical data I give you or don't give you. Data can also be manipulated. The mayor does not vote. The decision will be made to my left, to my right. Anything about the city, as long as I've been mayor, I do not vote. So the tax that came on me was just a tax. None of it was true. The fourth thing I wanted to say is that our city is doing an excellent job. And I am not for just putting vape shops in one location. I disagree with that. Our council is 100% for small businesses. It has been proven because we have given out grants and we have been focused on our downtown Killeen. So we do care about small businesses. So I'm asking you, residents here and residents that's going to look at this video, please do not believe everything you hear negatively about this council, because our record speaks for itself. Mr. Leo Gukaisen. Sir, you have 4 minutes, and good evening.
Excuse me. Good evening, Madam Mayor, Mayor Pro
sir.
Temp, council members, city manager, Mr. Cagle, residents. I normally do not speak on public hearing matters because they come before most of them come before the Planning and Zoning Commission. And as a commissioner of the Planning and Zoning, I've already stated my thoughts on that. But in regards to the vape stores, the presentation that you'll get this evening, it will reflect that the P&Z voted unanimously 7-0 to disapprove this particular amendment. But what you will not see in this presentation is what transpired during our decision and discussion and why we voted the way we did. Now, I'm only here to speak on myself. I don't speak for the other 6 commissioners that voted against this. I'm only speaking for myself. And I feel that this ordinance is unjust and unfair to the small businesses that want to start a vape store. I am not a vape smoker. I don't really care about it, but it's the fact that it's unfair to them if they want to start a business and with the restrictions that this ordinance will put on them. It seems that the issue about vape smoking is a main issue of the KISD. That was in accordance with the article that was written by the Daily Herald. It was in the Daily Herald about it. That it seems to be an increase on school campuses. Well, I feel that this KISD has their own measures that they should be using to initiate policies or to prevent this. It also appears that this ordinance is targeting small businesses that want to want to be a vape store, while giving larger businesses like 7-Eleven and other ones, convenience stores like that, and major food grocery stores, a lenient hand because they sell the same product and they are in that 1,000-foot radius. Now, I do understand that the stores that are in this radius will not be told they have to close. The city's not going to close them down. They'll just get a letter from the planning people saying they're basically out of the proper zone they're supposed to be in. But no one's going to come to the door and put a padlock on it. But it is an issue that we are hindering small business owners that wish to run a store like this. When we give, like I said, when you look at it and talking with folks, what about those major convenience stores that are within that, can build within 1,000 foot and sell the same stuff? An article was brought up during our meeting about the sale of vapes, and it's this particular article, I'm not saying it's the truth or gospel, but it says that most vapes are bought online, not at stores for these young men and women at the schools. They buy them online because it's easier, I guess, to do that. I don't know. But I just feel that this ordinance should not be approved as is because it is, in my opinion only, unfair and unjust to the small business owners if they wish to start a business like this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gukaisen, I just want to commend you. That was the best way, you being on planning and zoning, that was the best example that you explained why you voted 7-0. You did a comparison. Most people come up, they just talk. But you gave factual data, something that really happened, because you did vote on it. You were on that committee. You gave us the insight on why planning and zoning made that decision. You gave us the comparison between a 7-Eleven and a vape shop. And I do know, I state this again, this council is really for 100% small business owners. So I'm not saying which way they're going to vote, but they are for it. Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
With that being said, the next person we have, Mr. Sean Price. Good evening, Mr. Price. You have 4 minutes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir, good evening.
Council. Just for a little bit, I think you had all right to say what you had to say, Madam Pro Tem.
Mr. Sean Price,
Just agreeing with her
get back on the agenda.
before the agenda started. So, item PR 24-009, I'm just wondering, with the golf course, over all the red, or the sea of red of debt that the golf course has acquired, now that we're going into the black and getting some profits out of it, what is the difference from the losses to the gains? So have we paid back all the losses to the city versus the gains? So that's my avenue of trying to understand this. Otherwise, I would say that we need to release this to the highest bidder and let it go to the public and pull it from city council. And or if that's the case, do we have any high school golf teams? You know, can't we not get parents to go ahead, okay, yeah, I'm going to get my kid involved in golf and have it part of the sports curriculum at KISD? I think that would be benefit. If we're going to have it, right, then it should benefit the youth and actually involve the youth at the schools, right? If we're going to spend the money and take losses on it, well, then have it benefit directly to sit there and get our kids out there and in our golf course. Just a thought. So with PH 24008, I think this is overdevelopment. This open land, right, I think it should just stay that way. I think a lot of these areas are getting over-congested and overdeveloped. So there's a lot of safety risks with this property, and I think it should just be left alone. Otherwise, have it as single-family homes and mitigate it in that kind of standard. Risking more than one family is not appropriate, you know. Putting high-density homes in the area just cause for, you know, more havoc. No, I have it here, but we're also having the DS, right? Or I don't speak with the items that are on DS, right? Just the PH ones, right? Okay, all of it's okay. I just wanted to make sure that all of it was on there. So DS 24023. I wanted to ask for, and as well as 24, so the music and the art districts, right? What is the relevance? You know, how are we representing the relevant of our city, right? Because what is the reputation of Killeen? Oh, it's Fort Hood. It's not, you know, it's a military town. There's not really that there. So what is that relevance being conveyed? I couldn't find anything at the websites that said that we had these reports in place for these two programs to be initiated. So appropriately, I couldn't find it, so I couldn't review it. With the vape shops, I just think that, you know, really, it's just.
Mr. Price?
Oh, am I there?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. With the comprehensive plan, one of the things that the comprehensive plan that we do have in place, the council get updates, and Ms. Kager, you can correct me, we are like 22% of engaged with that comprehensive plan, things that we have completed within that comprehensive plan. It may be more, by around 22, 24. 24%. So our comprehensive plan is not a book that's on the shelf. Anything that's prior to that was just prior to a combined together to make our comprehensive plan. What makes our 2040 comprehensive plan important? Because we got the input from our residents. That's why it's important to get the input as we continue to move our golf course forward. I wanted to address that. And council, feel free, anything that you have heard that you know may be misleading and incorrect, please address that. And I'm going to go to Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. My clubs have a rack of dust on them, and when I play golf, it ain't called playing golf. I think my handicap is double what the average is. But in our high school students, we do actually have a KSD does have golf teams, and I think a couple of their students placed pretty well in the last couple of years. So, and they do use Stone Tree. The general manager explained that to me when I went out there. So that's all I have.
Thank you. And also, Mr. Price with DS 2423, 2424, and those two will be addressed by Ms. Tiffany McNair when she present them on the PowerPoint. If you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to our city staff. Thank you. Now we will have James Rogers. Good evening, sir, and thank you for your patience. You have 4 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Madam Mayor and Chief, I promise you, no tantrums from me.
Thank you so much.
10 years ago, in reference to this 3210 Florence Road rezoning, 10 years ago, I fought this very same battle with the previous city council, and they disapproved this change. I'm fighting this again. And what they want to do is put in duplexes, more duplexes. I'm not sure that our planning is correct if we're going to continue to do that. And I know that, single-family homes is hard. But 25 years ago, I moved into this neighborhood of Turtle Creek. You all know where it is. It's where mayors, city managers have lived. And Roy and Julia Villaronga, my good friends, encouraged me and my wife to move there. We did. We raised our children there. I'm not opposed to development, but not this continual concrete and asphalt. The area that I'm concerned about is the northern portion of this proposal. It is a greenery area. One of our Ms. Gonzalez talked about greenery in our city. We need more of it. So I'm requesting that you disapprove this proposal because it makes sense that we leave it all R1 in the northern portion. I don't mind more in the south, but I would say, as I proposed to Quintero Engineering, I sent them an email, have that northern portion R1, so you can have single-family homes. Right now, that northern portion, in order to get there, the sanitation trucks have to go in backwards. There is no turnaround. So you're going to put 15 duplexes on that side? No, it's not going to work. It's dangerous, as Melissa Brown mentioned. So that greenery area not only has a possum family, it has a skunk. Mr. Skunk is there. And it has a family of hoot owls. If you pave that all over, they're gone. Where are they going to go? And the safety issue I talked about. The previous city council disapproved this. The Planning and Zoning Commission unanimously voted to recommend disapproval. So I asked the city council to make a King Solomon decision. Send this back, have them rework it so that the northern portion becomes R1, and I will support the southern portion being R2, as will the 300 voting citizens that are in Turtle Creek, representing 80-plus different homes. 80-plus different homes, 300-plus voting citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your comments, and I am aware of that area that you're talking about. Okay. Anything else? Any more comments? All right. Madam Secretary, discuss items for regular city council meeting on April 9th, 2024. Resolutions.
RS 24064, consider a memorandum resolution accepting the annual audit report for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2023.
Thank you. Oh, wow, you there fast. I'm sorry, I'm still trying to get back into focus on this. Mrs. Tangleman, good evening, ma'am. How are you doing?
Thank you. Good. Thank you,
Good, good.
ma'am. Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me. This item is to present the audit for the year ended on September 30, 2023. The external auditors, Patillo Brown and Hill, completed the audit on March 28. That day, we presented to the audit committee meeting. Today, we have Mr. Todd Pruitt over here, and he's going to give you guys the results of the audit.
Thank you. Good evening, sir, and thank you for your patience.
Thank you. My name is Todd Pruitt, and I'm a partner with Patillo Brown and Hill, and I was the partner in charge of the audit this year. I would like to first of all thank the council for giving us the opportunity to perform the audit this year. And I'd also like to give special thanks to Judith and really all of the city staff for all of the help that they gave us during the course of the audit. I know you have the city's annual financial report, and if you take a look at that, there's close to 200 pages of information in that report, financial information. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into the preparation of that report from the city staff. They also have to do it while undergoing an audit. And despite what you probably heard, undergoing an audit is not always as much fun as it sounds like it would be. There's also a certain amount of work that goes into it as well. And we really appreciate all of their time and effort in helping us get our job done. As Judith mentioned, we met with the audit committee last week and we discussed the results of the audit in detail. What I'd like to do tonight is to briefly go over the results of the audit. Those audit results are contained in 3 independent auditors' reports that we've issued. As you know, we were engaged to perform the audit of the financial statements. In addition to that, you might recall that any local government in the country that spends over $750,000 in federal grants in a particular year triggers what's also called a single audit. In a single audit, you're going to combine the audit of your financial statements with a compliance audit of those federal grant awards programs. The city spent over $20 million in federal grants during the year, so that did trigger the single audit as well. And then we'll touch on a few financial highlights, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those as well. The first report is the independent auditor's report on the financial statement audit. And what that report basically says is that the preparation of these financial statements in your annual financial report is the responsibility of the city. We can assist with the preparation of those financial statements, and we do, and you can still maintain your independence, but ultimately the preparation of the financial statements is the city's responsibility. It's your auditor's responsibility to express an opinion on the financial statements. I'm happy to report that we've expressed what's called an unmodified opinion. You'll often hear that referred to as a clean opinion, and it's the highest form of opinion that we can issue. And what that really means to you as a user of these financial statements is that the financial statements have been audited by our firm, and in our opinion, they're free of any material misstatements, and they're also presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. You'll also note in the last paragraph of that report that our audit was performed in accordance with government auditing standards. And government auditing standards require your auditors to do a number of things that go beyond just generally accepted auditing standards. One of which is to report on the city's internal controls over the financial reporting process, and also with compliance with laws and regulations and contracts and grants. If you were looking for that report, you will find that report on the first page of your separately issued single audit report, but I'll tell you what it says. The first part of that report as I mentioned, deals with your internal controls over the financial reporting process. And what that really means, it's all the policies and procedures that you have in place in order to prepare your financial statements. Your auditors first, before they can plan and perform their audit, they have to gain an understanding of those internal controls. We do that so we can plan our audit procedures accordingly. We plan your audit procedures in areas where we think the risk of misstatement is more likely to occur. That way we're focusing our audit procedures in those areas. Have we identified any deficiencies in those controls, either in the design or the operation of the controls? They would be required to be included in this report. And I'm happy to report there were no significant deficiencies that were identified with respect to your internal controls over financial reporting. The second part of this report deals with non-compliance. Here we're talking about non-compliance with laws, grants, contracts, regulations, any type of non-compliance that, in our opinion, if we were to identify it, we believe it would have a material impact on your financial statements. Usually those items would be something that would create some type of liability in your financial statements. For example, if we were to identify, if we were testing a grant and we identified expenditures that were charged to that grant that are not allowable under the contract, you might have to pay that money back to the granting agency. Those are the type of things that we're testing for here. And I'm happy to report there were no instances of noncompliance with laws and regulations and contracts and grants that are required to be reported under government auditing standards. So you're batting 1,000 so far. And the final report is the Uniform Guidance Report. It immediately follows the government auditing standards report in your single audit report. And what this report deals with is the compliance with your federal grants that I spoke about earlier. And the way that process works, your auditors don't test every federal grant that you get every year. That would be cost prohibitive. There's a risk process that we go through, and we select certain programs for testing. The two programs that were selected for testing this year were the Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund and the CDBG program. And what we're doing here, we actually have to give an opinion as to whether or not we believe the city has complied in all material respects with the requirements of those programs. I'm happy to report again that we've issued an unmodified opinion. Again, that's often referred to as a clean opinion. And all it really means is that, in our opinion, that the city did comply in all material respects with the requirements of that program. The second part of that Uniform Guidance Report deals with internal controls. But here we're talking about internal controls over compliance. So instead of all the policies and procedures that you have in place over the financial statements that we have in the Government Auditing Standards Report, we're talking about all the policies and procedures that you have in place to make sure that you're complying with the requirements of those programs. And usually the compliance requirements deal with things like allowability. Did you spend the grant money on what you were supposed to? Most grants will have financial reporting requirements that you have to file certain reports on time, and we make sure they're filed accurately. You might have matching requirements. Sometimes you have to put local money with the federal money under the program. There's a lot of different compliance requirements that can come into play. They're different really depending on the different program. But again, we did issue an unmodified opinion on your compliance, and there were also no control deficiencies that we identified during the single audit process, and no findings or question costs. So to summarize the results of the audit, you've got really exactly what you're hoping for here. You've got a clean opinion on your financial statements. There were no significant deficiencies in the internal controls over the preparation of your financial statements. No non-compliance with grants and contracts and laws and regulations that we believe could have an impact on your financial statements. And then with the single audit, you've got a clean opinion on both of the federal programs that we tested, and there were no significant deficiencies in the internal controls over compliance with respect to those programs. So I would like to congratulate the city on the clean results of the audit. always like to point that out. I work exclusively on audits of local governments, and I've been doing that for over 30 years. And you read the papers and see the news, they don't always come out that way. So anytime you've got clean results, I like to congratulate the city and point that out to the council. Just a few highlights. I mean, there's 200 pages of information in this report that you can go through, so we won't go over it in much detail. But overall, the city's net position increased by $24.5 million. Total net position, and this is with respect to your governmental activities, total net position was $126 million at year end. Revenues increased $12.2 million, which was 9%. The largest increases were in investment income and operating grants and contributions. That's pretty standard across the board. Investment income and operating grants were way up with all of the COVID money that's been going out in recent years. And your expenses totaled $137 million, and the largest increase was in public safety. With respect to your funds, I know the city has established a target level for the general fund to be at least 22% of operating expenditures. At fiscal year end, the fund balance in the general fund was approximately $32 million, which is just about 30% of total expenditures. And here's a few statistics with respect to your business type activities, which is your water, sewer, solid waste, your activities where you're charging a fee. Here, your net position increased by $19 million. Total net position was $282 million at year end. Revenues increased by about 12%, and your expenses increased by about 20%. So that's a very quick rundown of the results of the audit. If anyone has any questions about the audit itself or the financial statements, I'd be happy to answer those.
Thank you, sir, and Mrs. Tangleman. Mr. Cagle.
Sir, could you explain the comment about management override of controls?
Oh, yes. Are you talking about in the 114 letter?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Thank you.
You have a letter in your packet. It's about 4 pages long. This letter contains matters that are required to be communicated to a governing body from your auditor anytime you undergo an audit. And one thing that I wanted to point out last week to the audit committee, because it was causing some grief last year, if you look on the second page of that letter, at the top you'll find a heading called Significant Risks Identified. And this was new last year. The concept of significant risks wasn't new. It's always been around in the audit world. But up until last year, your auditors weren't required to include the significant risks identified during an audit in this report. That changed last year. So now we have to include any significant risks. And all a significant risk is something that we consider when the audit starts that we think might be a significant risk of material misstatement. So we want to make sure that we're addressing that. And you'll see there were 2 significant risks here in your letter. The first one is management override of controls. That's the one that caused a lot of grief last year, because people would see that and they thought, oh no, do we have a problem with management override of controls? And I wanted to point out that this is not specific to the city of Killeen. Under the audit standards, management override of controls is a significant risk by definition in every audit. So every city across the country should have a significant risk identified of management override of controls. And you can see here, the reasoning is there's a presumption in all audits that you will always have a risk of fraud with respect to management override of controls. This is something that your auditors have to be aware of when they go into an audit. But I did want to point out that that's not specific to anything in the city of Killeen. You could also say the same thing about number 2 there. There was a new GASB standard, GASB 96, that went into effect this year, and that's also not specific to the city. Every local government had to implement that standard this year if it was applicable.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Cagle, for bringing it up, because it's very important when you see a statement like that to get it from the professionals to correct the answer, because it can grow feet on its own and just go everywhere. So thank you for being on the record what it means. Thank you. Councilmember Adams, and then following him is Mayor Pro Tem Cobb.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I changed my major after interning with a CPA doing the audit.
Smart choice.
There's been discussion, like when our auditor had done an audit, catching up on missing fees and what have you, and a call for a managerial and a forensic, or a call for a forensic audit was, can you explain briefly, because I can go into detail, what leads to a managerial audit and then a forensic audit? And did you see anything that precipitates either in your findings?
Yes, I would say matters that we would find that would lead us to recommend something like that would be really if we were to identify any actual instances, or also, more likely, any significant deficiencies in your controls that we're like, okay, hey, we may not have found anything here, but we think your controls are weak. In that case, we might sit down and talk with you and maybe recommend doing something like that. In this case, there was nothing like that we identified. Therefore, I mean, we didn't sit down and recommend it, but anytime that we come across anything that we feel like the city would need to do something like that, we would definitely sit down and discuss that.
Yeah, and I think I was told once by a CPA that doing a forensic audit without something that's like sending a crime scene search into an apartment and
Yeah.
it hasn't been a murder yet. And so we
Yeah,
have
exactly. You could spend a lot of money and get a very small return on it as well. I see that happen a lot of times. I mean, you really have to be careful with what you're doing. I mean, and be cognizant of the fact that you're spending public money and making sure that, you're spending it wisely. And I would never recommend, that that the city, do something unless it was warranted.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for that audit. The reason why we work so hard, we fight so hard, and we stand in honesty, integrity, and pride is because of that report. Finance Department, excellent job.
Ms. Tangleman, thank you. Your staff is just simply the best. Thank you for all you do for our city. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
RS 24065, consider a memorandum resolution approving revisions to the bylaws for the Senior Citizens Advisory Board.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Nook. Thank you for your patience.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This item is a consideration of a revision to the Senior Citizens Advisory Board bylaws. On February 15th, 2024, the Senior Citizen Advisory Board passed a motion to add language to the Senior Citizen Advisory Board bylaws. Article 3, Members, Section 3. All members of the board shall be members of the Clean Senior Center. Asia Pender, Deputy City Attorney, advised the board members that the inclusion would require a City Council approval. Staff recommends the request to be denied as written. The Clean City Council set the purpose of the board is to promote and facilitate communications between the board and City Council in matters influencing the needs and interests of seniors, persons age 55 and over, and to better assist the City Council in being responsive and well-advised as to issue of relevance to seniors. Of the 6 Senior Citizen Advisory Board objectives listed in the bylaws, only 2 refer to senior centers. Limiting membership eligibility will also limit the pool of candidates available to the City Council. So recommendation is to deny in order to keep your pool to be as limitless as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Nook. And what I'm understanding is the Senior Advisory Board want members, that you have to be a member of the senior citizen facility, which requires you to be 55 and older to be on the board.
Yes, ma'am. And I do want to advise you that there are several members of our Senior Citizens Advisory Board here in the audience, as well as our current and former chair.
Yes, ma'am. And next week during citizen comments, they will have the opportunity to speak. And you stated that the reason the staff on it because it limit our pool on who can sit on the Senior Advisory Board.
Yes, ma'am. It's still the council's decision who to make a member of the board.
Right. And there's no age limit that you're proposing.
As the bylaws are written right now, there are no age limits. If you were to include this requirement to be a member of the senior center, then they would have an age limit requirement to be a member of the center.
Okay. All right, well, I hear their comments next week. I mean, I have mixed emotions about it. I can understand from your perspective, because you're right, we don't get a lot of people to sign up to participate on our board, but as a senior, what I need and what I want, people that's not in my age group may not be able to comprehend, and we need to work together. That's just two different perspectives, but I haven't heard everything. But I support whichever way the council go with this. But I can see it from both perspectives. All right, thank you. Ms. Snook, you're next.
RS 24066, consider a memorandum resolution declaring a vacancy on the Senior Citizen Advisory Board and appointing a member to fill the unexpired term.
Thank you, Ms. Snook. Sorry
Yes,
about
ma'am.
that, ma'am. I apologize.
Senior Citizen Advisory Board appointment. The mayor and city council make annual appointments to the various boards, commissions, and committees each year and throughout the year as vacancies occur. The Senior Citizen Advisory Board recently had a board member resign from their seat, creating a vacancy. To declare a vacancy and make appointments to fill the unexpired term of vacancy, city council action is required. The board member who resigned was Ms. Holly Teal. She has an unexpired term. Recommendation, City Council declare a vacancy and appoint an individual to fill the vacancy on the Senior Citizen Advisory Board.
RS 24067, consider a memorandum resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of addendum number 9 to amended and restated water supply contract of April 1st, 2004 for the WCID Water System Improvements Project.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. On January the 30th of this year, Bell County Water Control and Improvement District Number 1, WCID, presented to the City Council their proposed water system improvements project, which includes expansions and modifications to the Lake Belton Water Plant, as well as the Killeen Transmission System. It is the intent of WCID to sell $111.37 million in water system revenue bonds to finance the project. WCID had prepared a contract wherein all of the customers receiving water from the Lake Belton Water Plant will pay a proportionate share of the cost of the water system improvements project. Due to City Council's request, you may remember that the city of Killeen not participate in the expansion portion of the project. The modification portion of the bonds that the city of Killeen will be responsible for is 14.9% of the total, or $16.58 million. WCID has presented addendum number 9 to amended and restated water supply contract of April 1st, 2004 for approval. Addendum 9 requires the city's proportionate share of the total project cost to be $16.58 million, with a 20-year debt service schedule, total annual payments, which will average right around $1.3 million. The recommendation is that City Council approve the attached resolution authorizing the execution and delivery of Addendum Number 9 to amended and restated water supply contract of April 1st, 2004. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I know this is a result because we didn't feel it was necessary to expand capacity, but my question is, what will be the total? I know it's 1.3 million. How do we intend to pay that portion back? If you can explain that, Mr. Cagle.
Sure, we'll pay it out of the utility fund and out of, we'll put it in the budget along with everything else. As we said earlier, it may not have any impact on the rates. If it is, it'll be modest and only maybe in the tiered structure rates, not the basic rate.
Okay, that was my next question, whether will residents see a change, residents or businesses see a change in their water rate as a result of this?
Well, I want to give a complete answer. The rate's not going to change much, if at all.
Okay.
But if it weren't for this, could you reduce the rate? I suppose you could, but then you're going to have a much larger increase when you have the massive failures and people don't have water. I think the best way to look at it is it's what I said earlier in the presentation. We've got to put the whole budget together, and this will be one part of it, but any impact on rates, either nothing or very minimal.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Adams. That was a good question, but as we all know, I think a couple council members stated it before, water is priceless. You cannot put a price tag on it. So thank you, sir. Madam Secretary, public hearing will be held on April 9th, 2024. Madam Secretary.
PH 24008. Hold a public hearing and consider requests submitted by Quintero Engineering on behalf of Fankins Properties LLC, case number Z2402, to rezone approximately 12.033 acres out of the John Essery Survey, abstract number 296, and the M. Tongate Survey, abstract number 831, 775-3 from R1 Residential District and RMH Residential Mobile Home District to R2 Two-Family Residential District. The subject property is locally addressed as 3210 Florence Road, Killeen, Texas. Requires a 3/4 majority vote.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Rubel, welcome back.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, City Manager, Assistant City Manager, and City Council. The item tonight is to request to rezone property that's located at 3210 Florence Road from a current dual zoning designation of R1 Residential District and Residential Mobile Home District to Two-Family Residential District. The star shows the approximate location of the property. This is the actual location of the property. And again, the request is to rezone this property with the intent being to develop two-family residential home properties. It's not mentioned in the presentation, but at the Planning and Zoning Commission, a question did come up regarding in terms of the number of structures or what would be built there. The applicant did acknowledge that the access was limited, and so they would have to abide by the city rules of no more than 30 units on this lot. A view of the subject property looking east, looking northeast, southeast, and then to the west. The property is designated on the future land use map as residential mix, so this request is consistent with the future land use map, and then it's also located in the neighborhood infill growth sector map of the comprehensive plan. And I think it is important to note here, before when you had a similar case to this, and the staff made the recommendation to not necessarily approve that case. It was from R1 to R2, but there was a dramatic difference, and that's the growth area. In that particular case there, the growth was related to controlled growth, and here it's related to neighborhood infill. And as you can read on the slide, that's where we want development to happen. So
Staff is most certainly in support of places where development should be happening. Comp plan recommendations that will be advanced. All notifications were accomplished. As a result, 3 written notifications came, 3 written requests in support, 3 written responses in opposition. The opposition responses in terms of property area that's owned by those who in opposition was about 14%. And the stars on the map show, the 4 orange stars show those that are in opposition, and then the 3 blue stars show those who are in support. I would point out that here is already some existing duplexes here. There are also some existing duplexes here, here. And then single family. Staff found that this request would be consistent with the comp plan, also consistent with the character of the surrounding area, and doesn't anticipate any negative impacts. And all impacts associated with access and traffic would be something that would be dealt with further in the development process and not necessarily as a part of this process. Staff is recommending approval of the applicant's request as noted. The Planning and Zoning Commission did hear this request, and as was mentioned by an earlier speaker, they voted to disapprove this request, recommend disapproval of this request unanimously, and therefore, as was mentioned by the Secretary, a 3/4 majority vote will be needed on next week if the council decides to approve this request.
Oh, there you go. I thought I had it on, then I looked and it was turned off. What the heck? Somebody cut me off.
Uh-oh.
That was the mayor. I knew that. Didn't want me to
It
talk.
was Councilmember Sagara and then Councilmember
Right.
Adams. I had wrote it down.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. We heard one of the citizens speak earlier, and I always ask this when people come up here, and there is a little bit of controversy on everybody. And, I did that with the last one we did, and I told the guy, have you spoken with the residents? Because, you always want to see if there's some kind of compromise. I find it unique that the people that are in support of it are kind of south of it. And in hearing that resident that spoke earlier, he didn't totally say it, let's not do it. He said, let's work on a compromise. And I thought that was a great idea. And his recommendation was on the north part, do R1s, and on the south part, do R2s. And hearing what you said, is that how the map that you described towards the south, you got the duplexes, and up north you got residential?
Excuse me.
Yeah, on that map that you pointed out.
Yeah, so up here is mostly the single family. Here is where we have the duplexes.
Yeah.
I believe what the gentleman was saying is in this location, do the rezoning for R2, and in this location, and in this location, and here, do R1.
Do R1.
Yes, sir.
And I think that's a great idea. And my question, I don't know if that's something that you can answer or not, if the developer or the engineer had that conversation with them.
I don't know if they've had that conversation, but I will say this, when we heard that comment, I do believe that, typically with zoning cases, the council has 3 alternatives, to disapprove or approve. And then the middle alternative is to approve something with conditions that's considered to be more restrictive. What has been proposed would meet that criteria of something that would be considered more restrictive.
Yeah, because I can tell you, and this is just me speaking, for requiring a 3/4 of a vote is going to be tough next week. And I would rather have them go and see if that compromise is available before they come back to us. And because I think that there's option. I mean, they're not asking to deny everything. They're saying, we're okay with it, but let's compromise here. And I think that's the way it should be. And so I appreciate the citizens coming up here and speaking and making that recommendation, because that does resonate. And so hopefully I don't know if that's something that staff can reach out to. and-
Yes, sir, we can follow up with the applicant, let them know what was the outcome of this discussion tonight, and encourage them, make this opportunity available to them and let them decide what they want to do.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Cigar, because even with the plan that the resident stated, it still falls within a comprehensive plan.
Yes, ma'am.
So I think that's a win-win for both sides. I like that. Councilmember Adams and then Councilmember Solomon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Cigar addressed most of the points that I had with the compromise. Well, on the issue of the ingress and egress, did we get any input from the fire department on delivery of services to that area?
So we will get a much fuller, should this move forward, the fire department will be involved as a part of the platinum process. If this ends up being only one access point, then they're limited in the number of units that they could have. And then fire would also weigh in on what's needed in order to allow for maneuvering of fire service protection.
All right, and this doesn't meet the requirement of a PUD either?
No.
Okay. And I have the same issue with Councilman Cigar address requiring the 6 votes. Would it be in order to table this to give you enough time for the residents, yourself, and the developer? I don't know, the question of order will actually come from the mayor or the attorney to table this, because if we vote it doesn't get approved, it doesn't get the 6 votes, then it can't come back for quite some time, correct?
Well, my thinking is we would share what was discussed here at this meeting with the applicant, allow the applicant to make a decision as to how they want to proceed. If they choose to move forward, it's still up to the council to choose what I mentioned about that third option. Yeah.
All right, thanks.
Thank you for that, Councilmember Adams, but the thing I've always looked at, it was denied by the council before, but we don't live in that neighborhood. And if you have options up there that everyone can be happy, I don't think tabling it should be a decision. I think we should go forward with it next week.
And I only mentioned that to give them a chance to even work out a compromise, if that was doable. But thanks.
Yes, sir, and I can understand your perspective, too. Thank you. Councilmember Solomon.
I agree with what has been said. I was curious to find out with planning and zoning was being always in opposition. This is the reason maybe they suggested the same thing of having a compromise here?
So they raised, and I'm actually going to the minutes. There was some discussion about access and, ingress and egress. There was some discussion, let's see, I think Mr. James did speak at that meeting as well. And then also, there was a comment made by Ms. Brown regarding what we're talking about now. So to say as a body that they said, try to see if we could work something out, I can't say that per se.
Okay, another question I have, Mr. Ravel, the citizen mentioned about when I believe the trucks come, they back up. Sanitation. Okay. They back up. With this plan, is that going to be the same way? They only have one way in and one way out? Are you familiar with that?
I am not familiar with that, but as a part of dealing with anything related to access, should this move forward, all of that would be addressed as a part of another process. But in terms of how Public Works maneuver and the operations that they engage, I am not intimately aware of myself.
Okay, I'm just curious about if this plan was taking place, would it be the same way with the duplexes in the housing? Would they create another opening in terms of? So
I would assume that if for this particular, it just depends on how this ends up being laid out. So for instance, if in this south end, if something's done with duplexes there, one possible layout could be something similar to what's right here, right? And so there would be an opportunity with that cul-de-sac to kind of maneuver in and out.
Well, I'm with Councilman Adams and Councilmember Sagaro, that we could come back, that would be my opinion.
Yes, sir.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Solomon. Mayor Pro Tem, no, ma'am, I apologize. Mr. Cagle, did you want to say something, sir? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Revelle. Madam
Yes, ma'am.
Secretary.
PH 24009, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance submitted by Lionel Reyes, case number Z2403, to rezone approximately .97 acres, being lots 1 and 2, Block 1, out of Westcliff Estates from R1 Residential District to R2 Two-Family Residential District. The subject properties are locally addressed as 5007 and 5009 Westcliff Road, Killeen, Texas.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Mr. Revelle.
Yes, ma'am. This is a request to rezone property that's located at 5007 and 5009 Westcliff Road from R1 to R2, single-family to duplex. The star shows the approximate location of the property, aerial of the property. The applicant's intent is to develop a duplex on each lot if this was granted. This is a view of the subject property looking head on north, to the south, to the east, and to the west. The property has a future land use as residential mix, so this request would be consistent with the future land use map. It's also, like the other one, located in the neighborhood infill growth sector map, where we'd like to see development take place and happen and encourage it as much as we can. It does further similar recommendations associated with Killeen 2040, land use mix. Notifications were accomplished. One written response in opposition to the request was received. That opposition was mostly related to just didn't want to continue to see this kind of development in the area. I think the gentleman was mostly referring to all of these that are here that are fourplexes. Of course, this request would be a two-family structure, not a fourplex. Staff finds that the request would be consistent with the comp plan and no negative impacts. Recommended approval of the request as presented. This was also heard on March 4th by the Planning and Zoning Commission. They voted by a vote of 7-0 to recommend approval.
Thank you. There are no questions.
Yes,
Madam
ma'am.
Secretary.
PH 24010, hold a public hearing and consider an ordinance amending Chapter 31 of the Killeen Code of Ordinances, providing for regulations regarding vapor stores.
Mr. Revelle.
Yes, ma'am. You and the council will recall, on January the 23rd, staff received a motion of direction from this body to prepare an ordinance limiting vape shops to B4 and B5 only, and prohibiting them within 1,000 feet of a public school. And so what's being presented tonight is in response to that direction. Currently, vape shops are permitted in all zoning district where retail stores are allowed, so B2, B3, B4, B5, M1, and M2 is currently where vape shops are currently permitted. With this ordinance, if it is approved by this body and with these provisions, it would only allow vape shops as defined by the ordinance in B4 and B5, and then also M1 and M2. So would no longer be allowed as a matter of right in B2 and B3 as it currently is. What that does mean is those existing vape shops, if this is approved to those existing vape shops that are in place, can continue to operate. They're not shut down. They can continue to operate. as was said, if there was an instance where something was shut down and the city was the cause of that, there could be some implications there for the city in terms of rectifying and correcting that. In addition, it prohibits vape shops within 1,000 feet of a public school. And then also, this ordinance, if approved, would prohibit vape shops within the historic overlay district. It is important to note that we did add a definition to the ordinance, and it's called vapor store. And it is there as written. It basically says, any establishment that's selling e-cigarettes, or where, as defined by the state chapter, that's 80% or more of the gross revenues, that's considered to be a vapor store. And notice that is associated with e-cigarettes, not all tobacco products. In addition, because of the recent state law change, we had to notify all of the existing businesses that will be affected. If this ordinance is approved, those businesses that are currently operating but wouldn't meet the requirements of this new ordinance would become what's called legal non-conforming. And so we had to notify them to let them know that that could happen, and so that they could have an opportunity to share their concerns with us as well as with this body. So that did happen. As a part of that notification, we did do a thorough review. I know it was mentioned earlier in the comments that we had identified 5 locations, and that's correct. In January, we did identify 5 locations. As we continue to do our work and due diligence on this, we identified a total of 11 here, but if I'm comparing the 5 to the, I would compare the 5 to the 9 as opposed to the 11. But be that as it may, currently, we've identified that there are 11 existing businesses that would be impacted by this. What's most important is that we've identified who would be impacted. As you can see, 7 would be within 1,000 feet of a public school. 2 would be already zone B3 or B2, and then 2 that meet both conditions within and also zone something more restricted, B2 or B3. And this map really just shows those words graphically speaking. Basically, the red star shows the vape shops in zone 3, B3, and the blue star shows those within 1,000 feet of the buffer of the school, and then the red-blue shows both. Okay. And as I mentioned earlier, these businesses would be made legal non-conforming, but they would not be shut down. They would continue to operate as is. They would be that word that we oftentimes refer to as grandfather. Staff recommends that the City Council approve this ordinance as presented. This ordinance was also heard by the Planning and Zoning Commission on the date noted on the slide. They unanimously voted to recommend disapproval, and therefore 6 affirmative votes would be needed from this council if the decision is made to approve this ordinance as written.
Thank you, Councilmember Sabal.
Thank you, Mayor. And just a couple of questions on it. And we heard some comments, but right now if you're a kid, is there an age limit, as far as going into a vape shop and buying stuff? Is it like cigarettes? You have to be a certain age to buy that?
Yeah, I believe it's 21.
Oh, it's 21?
I believe. Yep.
So kids can't go into the shop and buy whatever that a vape shop sells, right? So I'm assuming that. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to like liquor stores, I think, what is our distance on liquor stores from school zones?
I would have to look that up. I think in some instances it's 300 feet, but in some instances it could be 1,000 feet under certain circumstances, but I have to look at the details to tell you exactly.
Yeah, and then the other thing was, and one of the citizens made comment, But like grocery stores, they're like cigarettes. You can buy the stuff at a grocery store. So that would impact them too, right? Or how would we go about that?
So this would not impact a convenience store. It would only impact those establishments that are selling vaping products where the e-cigarettes is basically the majority. It's the majority of what they sell,
Yeah.
the majority of what they offer. So this wouldn't impact a convenience store or a grocery store or anything like that.
Yeah. So right now, when we have vape shops, they don't fall into any ordinance that we have in place, like the liquor stores, where, you know, let's say it's 300 feet. There's no distance for them.
Currently, no, sir. In our ordinance, there's currently no distance requirement for vape shops. And as we mentioned in the presentation, they've really been treated like any other retail establishment
Yeah.
in our ordinance currently.
And have we had any incidents that you know of, you know, with kids or anything like that going into these vape shops and doing things? Is that?
I've heard anecdotally, but I probably wouldn't be the best person to give you a full account of that, but I've heard anecdotally that there have been incidents.
Yeah, and that gets back to my first question. If you had to be 21 and you're allowing, that's a whole different, doesn't matter what distance you are. You know, if you're under 21 and you're inside a vape shop, that would be illegal, right? I don't know if that's the right term, illegal. What is it?
I'll let Chief. I think they can't sell to them.
A kid legally could walk into the vape shop, but they can't purchase anything.
They can't buy it.
Right. And the same thing with alcohol or
Just like
cigarettes.
alcohol, exactly. So they're not going into them and buying the stuff there. It's got to be somebody older that's buying it and giving it to them, or
Yes,
or
sir.
as somebody said, they bought it online. I guess I don't even know if you can do that. So
Yes, you can.
okay, so there's other means. So all right, because I think sometimes we tackle on too much as city council, and I think sometimes we get into these hornet's nets, and it's like, there's always reasons to do this, and I can see that, but in certain situations, I don't even know why we come up with this stuff here. But yeah, good stuff, and I can say, as it stands, I'm not in favor of this, so just want to put that out there, but I'm sure there's a lot of questions still that need to be answered.
Yes, sir.
Councilmember Adams brought this to us.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I will tell you that one of the issues, and I'm not going to name the business, was that we did not prevent a store to be opened right directly across the street from a school. And so that was the leading statement that citizens addressed with me. And I looked and I confirmed with Mr. Revelle and the city attorney that there was no ordinance that prevented it. So by right, you can put a vape store anywhere that's allowed to open up a retail business.
Yes, sir.
And I'm one that just because we don't have it doesn't mean we should. At the same time, doesn't mean we shouldn't. But then it leads to when we start to have an abundance of it, and the only place they can go is schools, then you go back and look and say, hey, you guys allowed all of these to be here everywhere. And this is not an attack on small business. Business is about innovation and creativity anyway, and those that survive in this country are because they're innovative and creative. And no place where in any place in this country have we not addressed things of the age that would set the image of the city. And there are already some controversies we have going on that was discussed in some of the public comments and even in address. So I still say leaving this to do nothing at all is not the best option. Right now, I still agree, but I do have a question. The definition of public school, is that as stated in the Texas Education Code, so it would mean also charter schools?
No, sir. And give me 1 second. I think that's actually in the, we defined it, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you did.
Yeah. But no, it does not include that. It's strictly public school.
Okay, and daycares would be included in that as well.
And I could, if you want me to, I could read it.
No, you don't have to. I think I got it open now.
All right, okay.
And so my other concern is and as Councilmember Segarra brought up a very major and key point, is are we addressing it by still allowing it to be in, so if let's say everybody in here come together and we want to open up a grocery store and we sell vapes inside the grocery store and it's right up the street from Chaparral High School, on this, it'll be okay. And then this kind of makes it counterproductive of the image that we're trying to say. But at the same time, that grocery store is not going to say Bobcat Vape Den, per se.
Sure.
So that's the conflict that I still have even when presenting this, and I presented it because residents had an issue, and maybe they'll come out next week when it's a public hearing to further express the issue. But I mentioned to you, I did look at amending it to address that, but at the same time, I didn't want to get into the business of telling businesses how they can operate. Well, that's not our role. Our role is to say where you can operate and where you can't. And I don't want to go across that line. So I'll reserve. I have some other questions before next week. I'll come to you about you and the city attorney.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Councilmember Adams. Mr. Revelle, I thank you and your staff. The council put out a lot of directives, and it takes a lot of time and commitment to do all the research to come up with some kind of answer or ordinance or some kind of resolution, policies to put in place. But the unique thing, I think Councilmember Segarra said it best, alcohol, tobacco, vapes, anything a child should not have or should not be near them is so available everywhere. And that's unfortunate in our world today.
Yes, ma'am.
And I can see the compassion and understanding from Councilmember Adams. He's just trying to reach out to see around schools. But then the residents do have a valid point. You restricting me from having a business in certain areas. Then that's that competition side, being competitive. So I just hope the council take under consideration next week, putting everything in perspective and what's best for our community.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Items for discussion at workshop. Madam Secretary, we're almost there, Council.
DS 24023, discuss Texas Cultural District designation.
Miss McNair, thank you for your patience, and I notice you have two lovely ladies with you.
Actually, I have three.
I don't see but
Miss
two.
Kate, she must
she's
have gone back into the other room.
Oh, she was back
But
there.
she was here.
Okay.
But it's okay, we're gonna go ahead and move
Well,
forward.
before you finish, will you please introduce them for council and people that may not know them?
I certainly will.
Thank
So
you.
this evening, I have Amanda Wilkinson, who is the Killeen Civic and Convention Center Director, and then Tanita Mullen, who is the Convention and Visitors Bureau Manager. And there's Miss Kate Casito, who's our
Thank you.
Downtown Revitalization Director.
Thank you so much, Miss Tiffany. Thank you.
Thank you. So these presentations, this and the next, are a response to a request for a future discussion item by Councilmember Gonzalez. So we're going to provide some background. I invited these three staff members to provide information. They have been doing some work prior to my arrival and then also prior to the request to discuss these items. So first, we're starting with the Cultural District designation. It is awarded by the Texas Commission on the Arts. Cultural districts are designated zones that make use of cultural resources to stimulate economic development and community vitality. According to the TCA website, the cultural district designation is most likely to be awarded to a district that is already defined in terms of leadership, geographic boundaries, branding, and current assets. That is also relevant for the application that they put together, which is pretty significant and extensive. There was a question during citizen comments that asked about the relevance of these designations, and there is an answer to both in the presentations. So the goals of a cultural district may include fostering local cultural development, attracting artists and cultural enterprises to the community, encouraging businesses and job development based on cultural attractions, and addressing specific needs of a community utilizing its unique assets. And this is not the end of the list. There's many things that are beneficial to having a cultural district. Successful districts, there are many factors that contribute to a successful cultural district, including a unique and authentic identity highlighting the distinctiveness of the community, engaging artists as partners, sustainable artist work, live spaces, strategic planning that provides a vision and path for the cultural district, and anchor institutions, special events, and strong amenities. And those will include hotels, other artist spaces where they can go and create and perform. So the application timeline, each year TSA receives a letter of intent, and that is due by January 31st of an existing year, whatever year that you're in. The application is due June 15th. The evaluation process takes place in July, and they are able to announce an award as soon as early September. So this timeline is telling us that we have missed that initial deadline for January 31st. So in conclusion, the initial phase of this program will require at least 2 years of planning, and that is because we have a 13-page application that asks questions as far as when we established our cultural district, what is the governance makeup of that district, including experience and background of the members. There's a huge portion of the application that wants the planning process to be completely mapped out as far as all of the community engagement, significant cultural contributors that made this a relevant application. So it's a great application to start. And I'm speaking to Ms. Cazito, Mrs. Wilkinson, and Ms. Mullen. We see an opportunity between our community development department, our development services through Downtown Revitalization and Arts Commission to really put our heads together. So we're going to start having some quarterly meetings to see where we can go with this. So at this time, I am recommending that the City of Killeen reevaluate this opportunity to apply in 2026. And just to iterate, it is April 2024. I do not believe we will be in a position to put in a letter of intent to apply come June of 2025.
Thank you, Ms. Tiffany.
Thank you.
Councilmember Gonzalez, this is your project that you brought forth. Do you have anything you want to say before I open it up?
Well, yes, thank you so much for doing the research. And again, I see the value as we're really working to change our narrative and control our perception of what the City of Killeen is and what we represent. I think this is a very important designation, one of many. It's also in line and supports our strong towns and our main streets, and it kind of goes hand in hand with us building up that image of support for arts and entertainment across the City of Killeen. So thank you for that, and I respect your decision completely. Thank you.
Thank you, that was good. Okay, Councilmember Segar.
Thank you, Mayor. And real quick, when we talk about cultural district, are we also talking about like geographic boundaries? Like, are we looking at our downtown here, or is there a specific area that we're talking about?
Well, absolutely. You need to have geographic boundaries, including a map, and the map should cite the significant cultural amenities and spaces within that district. So I can't say that it's downtown Killeen. There hasn't been a decision made regarding where this would go. And this is why we're not, even at this time, in a position to apply, because that's almost the top 10 question, where is your cultural district? So that would need to be a discussion made or had, and then a decision made. I believe I would need to do more research, but it seems based on how the application is worded, a lot of these decisions would probably need to be brought forth before council and then move forward with the state application.
No, and one of the reasons, because I know that, and I always said this, not just downtown, but like Rancier, when you go down there, it's like a gateway and everything. But I know that in our city, we always talk about diversity, and when I think about diversity, one of the things that always comes to mind is as you're going down there, the different ethnic groups of, and a lot of us, we speak through our stomach, so it's like the different ethnic cuisine, you know, you got Philippine, you got Korean, you know, it used to be a Hawaiian place, Puerto Rican, and I see, you know, there's a lot of culture within that, you know, just using the many different local types, you know, those are non-franchise. And again, I think that's an important part of that cultural diversity is have an area where you get the local taste and businesses, not your national franchise. And I think that now that we're looking at doing Rancher, I think I made mention when we were talking about that project there, but creating something that's just goes beyond just fixing the roads. And so as you do that, keep that in mind, you know, if that's something that can create, you know, that can be created out of that kind of leads to downtown too, because it kind of directs traffic just where we need it. You know, that's a busy road. So, but it would be great if, you know, we can include that part in there too.
Absolutely. That is item number 8 in section C, current number of those cultural restaurants that are locally originated. So that is something that would have to be submitted as well. One place, I did look to see the closest cultural district to Killeen and Georgetown. Their website is a good place to go and kind of get an idea of where we could be headed with this cultural district here in Killeen. But yeah, it's very comprehensive as far as what you're doing, who you're serving, and providing that.
Yeah.
And it's really heavily linked towards arts as well.
Yeah, no, I agree. One of the things I used to jest about too is that a lot of our restaurants, it's true culture, you know, and so, you know, I used to have this with the mayor of Austin when we used to hang around at our conferences, and I'd say, I went to your cultural restaurant, but there weren't real, you know, people from that culture cooking, and it's like, you need to come and clean where we got the real true culture here. And so that's kind of one of the unique things that I always thought our city has is it's people because of our footprint all over the world, because of our military, you get people that are actually have family members and stuff that work there. So just a little tidbit. Thank you very much. Great work. Look forward to it.
Councilmember Adams.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ms. McNair, thanks again for the research you all did. First question I have is, in this designate, can it be more than one location within the city? Or is it's only one district that's designated in the research that you've come up with so far?
I've only seen one cultural district, but I'm sure there are probably larger cities that have more distinct areas that could be more sectioned off according to ethnic groups or types of art. So it could be a music cultural district and a performing arts cultural district.
So then, for future planning purposes, as with the other 40-plus miles or square miles of the city, as we grow into that, we could potentially have a zoning designation for that?
Well, I won't speak on behalf of the Texas Commission on the Arts.
Yeah.
And I think that might be possible, but that would definitely be something that they would be able to answer, and I'll find out for certain on that.
All right, so the reason why I asked that is once we get one designation, does that open up the possibility of additional ones? But I'll wait for your response on it.
Okay.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Gonzalez. Oh, you don't? Okay. All right. Thank you, Ms. Tiffany.
Thank you.
Madam Secretary.
DS 24024, discuss music-friendly Texas designation.
All right.
Ms. McNair.
Thank you. The
Yes,
Music
ma'am.
Friendly Texas Certified Community Program aims to establish a network that fosters the development of the music industry in Texas communities. By obtaining certification, the city of Killeen will be a part of a statewide network committed to attracting music industry growth for the purpose of furthering tourism initiatives. This is our application timeline. The staff did start this application process in March of this year. There was a workshop and a signed petition form completed for potential committee members, and that meeting was on March 20th again. The next step is to schedule and host a Texas Music Workshop, and that's going to take place either later this month or early May. Establish a music office liaison, and we are going to elect to have our CVB manager to do that. And next, it would be to register with the Texas Music Industry Directory. That would take place in May or June. And then a MOU between the City of Killeen and State of Texas would have to be executed, and we anticipate that would be sometime this summer. This timeline is very much dependent on everything that needs to happen before it happens. The Texas Music Friendly, once they are satisfied with the application to even hold the workshop meeting, that is when the meeting will be scheduled. So the staff was not able to give a definitive date on that. The MFT committee pre-designation. So per guidance from the MFT website, the local applicant must create an advisory committee made up of the local music committee stakeholders. Prior to scheduling the required pre-application workshop, the pre-application advisory committee were convened to sign the application, and the final committee will be established after the MOU is signed. Designation requirements, liaison, like I just mentioned on the timeline, to participate in monthly virtual business meetings and a one-year in-person meeting at the regional office, attend the annual Texas Sounds and Cities Conference, and to locally host at least 2 workshops per year, and that's for local engagement to be ongoing. In conclusion, the initial steps required to complete the application for the MFT designation have begun. The Killeen Convention and Visitors Bureau office is working to fulfill the remaining steps required for the application submittal.
Thank you, Ms. Mechner. There are no questions. Thank you.
All right.
Madam
Thank you.
Secretary.
DS 24025, Municipal Judge Review.
Thank you. Pursuant to the Texas Open Meeting Act, Open Meeting Law, Government Code 551.001, the mayor now calls a closed meeting of the City Council on the second day of April 2024 at 7:34 p.m. Under the following authority, Section 551.074, Personnel Matters, the City of Killeen, the City Council will conduct a municipal judge annual review. Public discussion of this matter will not be in the best interest of the city. Agenda item DS-24-025. The mayor now calls a closed meeting. Francisco, thank you so much for your hard work, you and your staff. The mayor will now call the meeting back to order. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Madam Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Councilmember Adams, okay. That was Councilmember Adams and Councilmember Solomon seconded. All in favor? Aye. Meeting adjourned.